Okay, now that we have defined what cofunctions are and three pairs of cofunction relationships, let's go ahead and see how we can use these cofunctions. We're just going to do some basic exercises that show us how we can use the cofunctions to rewrite trig function values. It's just practicing using them to make sure we're learning the relationships here. So our directions might say something like rewrite each function in terms of its cofunction. So suppose, so rewrite each function in terms of its cofunction. Suppose we had, we'll just do a few here. Suppose we had something like sine of 25. Okay, this is really simple, really straightforward. We just saw what is the cofunction of the sine function. The cofunction of the sine function is cosine. And in order to rewrite sine in terms of its cofunction, it means rewrite it in terms of the cosine. So what we saw is sine of some angle equals cosine of that angle's complement. So all we need to do is rewrite sine as cosine of its complement. What is the complement of 25? Well, that's just 90 minus 25. So we'd have cosine of 65. And we're done. That's it. We rewrote it in terms of its cofunction. Really straightforward, really simple. Pretty typical type of problem that you'll get in your homework or a quiz or test would be something like that. Just rewrite it in terms of its cofunction. So let's maybe just do one more like this. You can try to go ahead of me. I'll take a couple seconds. If we have cosecant of 72 degrees, so feel free to work ahead of me. Cosecant, its cofunction would be the secant function. So when we rewrite this, we would want to rewrite it in terms of cosecant. And we want to change the angle to the complement of 72. That's 90 minus 72. So this would be, excuse me, oh, I said that wrong. The cofunction of cosecant is secant, so we're going to rewrite it as secant of its complement, that angle being 82. So cosecant of 72 is equal to secant of 18, because 72 and 18 are complementary. So you're just adding or subtracting the prefix of co, and then changing the angle to its complement. Really, hopefully very simple. You'll practice a bunch on your homework. What's another type of problem we might see on your homework? Or on a quiz or a test? Oh, man. We could say, directions might say, instead of just rewrite in terms of its cofunction, maybe it will say write as a function of an acute angle less than 45, or write as a function of an angle less than 45. So this is another case where just read the direction and make sure that your answer satisfies each aspect of it. So for example, suppose I had tangent of 80. Well, if I had tangent of 80, I could rewrite it in terms of its cofunction. So actually, let's read the directions here. It says write as a function of an angle less than 45. So when I see tangent of 80, I have a function, but 80, of course, is not less than 45. So I'll rewrite it in terms of its cofunction. The cofunction of tangent, of course, is cotangent. And then I will change the angle to its complement. 90 minus 80 is 10. So I could rewrite tangent of 80 as cotangent of 10. And now I have a function of an angle less than 45 degrees. Okay. Any angle is either less than 45 degrees or its complement is less than 45 degrees. Or any acute angle, that's true for that, any acute angle. What if we didn't have an acute angle? What if we had something like, suppose we had cosine of 240. Well, this is obviously not an angle less than 45. In fact, it's not even an acute angle. So before we can even apply cofunctions, right? Cofunctions is about complementary angles. Two complementary angles would both have to be less than 90 degrees. So that maybe should be a note that you make up here with our cofunctions, is that this is only when theta is less than 90 degrees that these relationships apply. So if we have an angle that's not less than 90 degrees, first thing we have to do is rewrite it so that it is less than 90 degrees. Of course, to do that, we're going to use our reference angles. So I'll say 240 terminates in the third quadrant. And in the third quadrant, cosine is negative. And in the third quadrant, our reference angle is theta minus 180. So cosine of 240 is equal to negative cosine of 60 degrees. All right, but I still haven't satisfied the directions, right? It said of an angle less than 45. So now I can use cofunctions, and the plus or minus sign on the function is completely unaffected by cofunctions. So if I had negative cosine, I would have negative sine, but I want to take its complement, so that's negative sine of 30. Notice the directions say write as a function of an angle less than 45. So even though we know that the sine of 30 is 1/2, we're not even going to bother changing it. We'll leave it as the sine of 30. Since 30 is less than 45, we've satisfied the directions and we can stop right there. Okay. So that's a couple of examples of the types of problems that we can use cofunctions on. In the next video, we're going to look at a different type of problem where we can use cofunctions to solve equations. Okay, so that's coming in the next video.